What's going on YouTube? Craig the Travel Zombie here, and this time we are in Tucson. We made the 2-hour drive here to the historic Hotel Congress for Dillinger Days. We're gonna see a reenactment of the day that the Tucson Fire Department assisted in the capture of public enemy number 1, John Dillinger, and we are going to go on a walking tour in the very footsteps of the Dillinger crew. My name is Craig, I am the Travel Zombie, and welcome to Prime Time. Hey guys, I just want to take a second to talk to you before we get started with all the excitement at Dillinger Days today. This channel is not monetized in any way at all. So if you've ever wanted to help me fund our next adventure, which I would greatly appreciate, by the way, Patreon is the quickest and easiest way to do that. For $5 a month, you will get every video the second it's ready for the public. The second way that you can help me out is Cameo. For $15, I will record a personalized birthday message. I will record a wedding speech for you, or I can roast that one headache in your life. And as an added bonus, I've also launched a Facebook and an Instagram account for the channel where I'll be posting location drops. I will not be telling you where I'm going, but if you order your cameos within the specified window, you will receive your cameo from the location of my next video. And now, on to Dillinger Days. So the first thing we have here today is a pair of fire engines that were actually here on the day that the Dillinger gang was captured.
Oh yeah, we play old-fashioned baseball. That's the 60s. Really cool. What's your schedule? The next game is going to be here.
And I was overhearing one of the guys from the Greater Tucson Fire Foundation mentioning that inside, on board these vehicles, are the actual ladders that were utilized that day in fighting the fire at the historic Hotel Congress.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to this celebration right here where it happened, at the infamous Hotel Congress. Of course, you are about to experience an action-packed docudrama that has been taken right from the history books, interviews, and newspapers. Of course, we need to give you a warning. The weapons the performers are using are real, firing black powder charges that can be extremely dangerous at close range. For this reason, we must insist that you remain seated during the entire performance until the show is completely over and the performance area has been secured. With that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to settle back in your saddles and enjoy an exciting piece of the old Pueblo's true history from those thrilling days of yesteryear, as HotShotPerformer.com presents the Hotel Congress Incident. history as John Dillinger's gang. Even though I really wasn't running things at that point, but the press thought I was, so that's how we went down. I never minded publicity. Hell, I enjoyed it. God knows I was never shy in my profession. But, ladies and gentlemen, this is a robbery. My name is John Dillinger, and I'm robbing this bank. You're going to have a wonderful story to tell your grandkids if nobody gets their knickers twisted. And you can put your hands down. This ain't a picture show. Get it all, Red. Lake. Lucas! Stop! What? I'm sorry, but we gotta go. Put him down, cool him down. Come on, come on, come on. Come on. You're all right. You'll make it. Come on. Relax. Call an ambulance. Breathe. Just breathe. My wife's never gonna believe this. Let's go. That was John Dillinger, Lucas. Lucas.
Shootout on the east side. Public enemy #1 strikes again. It seems no one can stop the notorious John Dillinger. This time, a lawman lies dead in the wake of a fiery shootout after a holdup at the First National Bank of East Chicago. The bank is cleaned out. The customers are allowed to keep their money. Where will he strike next? The police are stumped. The FBI can't tell us. Can you say befuddled? It seems no one can stop the rampage of this gentleman bandit. Where will he and his gang turn up next? Extra, read all about it.
I knew it then. Even before I read it in the papers the next day. It would pin that copper on me. At 7:05 a.m., January 22nd, the desk clerk at the Hotel Congress rang the Tucson Fire Department reporting a fire in the hotel's basement. He then quickly began ringing rooms, waking people, and getting them out. Within 15 minutes, Tucson firefighters were on the scene. But by then, the blaze had spread rapidly, traveling up the phone lines, cutting off access from the 3rd floor. And on the 3rd floor, Charles Mackley and Russell Clark could be seen at a window. By this time, flames were licking at the doors on the 3rd floor. Help! Firefighters quickly raised a ladder, and the two climbed down, quickly raised a ladder. Hurry up! It worked better in your. You got it? Yeah. Hold the man down a little more. Who I think were wearing their pants. Good. Daphne climbed down to safety. Okay, here I come. Hold the ladder. Hold the ladder. Hold the ladder. Gosh, I can get me short. Lickety split they were. When they got down, sometime they tipped the firefighters generously to re-enter the room and recover some very important bags. Thank you. Engineer William Benedict climbed the ladder. The bags! Get the bags! Re-entering the room. And grab the bags. Okay, over the railing. Grab the bags. Hey, Nate, don't throw those down. And Beckley saw ready to drop it and shouted, "Don't throw it down!"
What? Throw it down?
No! Unbeknownst to the firefighter, it carried a lot of dough. Guns, bulletproof vests. The circus was in town, and we were it. The fire was the thrilling opening act. But now, I draw your attention to the center ring for the clown show.
It's the cops.
Oh, no, that way. Oh, okay, okay. All right, okay.
Whoa,
Okay,
there's
okay,
the
okay.
cat, too.
Oh, my goodness. Pick him up, pick him up. Hold it, hold it, hold it. Hold it, I said.
I'm trying. Oh, my ransom. Oh, my joy.
Oh, there's my nightmare. What's to be under the pillow, not the mattress, the pillow. Oh, I got it. You got it in the other.
They were collared. And later, Mackie told me he might have got out of that if Opal hadn't moved his gun under the pillow under the mattress when she was cleaning. The lesson bit of air being
I got him looking. I got him looking.
dames. Pierpont actually drove himself to the police station with the officer sitting on our bags in the back seat, full of dough, guns. I'd have given all the dough in those bags just to see the look on Pierpont's face when he stood at the front desk and realized what he had just done. But they still didn't have me. So now, I direct your attention to the air for the thrilling trapeze act. They surrounded me in front of the second active house when I went to the game. Never a good song. Kind of anti-climactic. But we were arraigned the next day, and they spared no expense. They got the entire sheriff's office, police, and the sheriff, all 4 sheriff deputies, and the National Guard out to guard the court. And it was all under the control of a bailiff who seemed a little out of his league, if you ask me. I was the first to be flown on the friendly skies of Con Air. From here to Crown Point, Indiana, where I escaped, whittling a gun out of the wood of my bed frame with the side of my belt buckle that I had sharpened on the concrete floor, and then polished that wood with shoe polish they had given me for my arraignment there. When it was all said and done, the gang's fate varied. Mackley was killed at the Ohio State Pen in September when he was trying to escape. For Harry Pierpont, they wasted no time with justice. He was given the electric chair in October. And Russell Clark was sentenced to life in prison and released in 1968 when he was 70, dying of cancer. I actually hear that he went to the Milwaukee Arena and saw Jim Morrison and the Doors.
Getting straight, deep, and wide. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Break on through.
He died a
Break on
month
through.
later.
Break up.
And they took care of me at the Biograph Theater in July, just 6 months after our visit here. But in the space of 5 days, here in Tucson, the Tucson police had captured, without firing a shot, public enemy #1 and the inner circle of the John Dillinger gang. Well, I'll be there.
All right. There. Next. March. March on down the courtroom. March.
So we don't have too much time left before our tour of the hotel starts, but let's take a look at the classic car show. So this is a 1929 closed cab pickup made by Ford. Purchased in 1995, took 3 years to restore this beauty. And apparently, it's almost paid for. Would you look at that? A former Tucson police car, like the ones that might have been here that day. All right, let's go inside and see what kind of merchandise they got. Apparently, they actually serve Dillinger's last meal here. So what are we looking at here?
So these are 2 model 1921 ACs. So they were produced in 1921 following Brigadier John Thompson's idea of the submachine gun. These are first ever produced submachine guns. They made 2 model 1921s, the A and the AC. The C just stands for compensating. That's what this device on the end is.
Okay. And these are from the Dillinger, these were captured from the Dillinger crew?
Correct.
These ones?
Correct, yeah.
Wow.
So these are 2 of 5. 5 Tommy guns were recovered from the John Dillinger gang. We've held on to 2 of them. Another 2 were shipped off, and the 3rd one has never been seen since.
Well, that's a little spooky.
It is. I couldn't tell you where it is. Nobody knows where it's at.
Yeah, I was just talking to the bartender over there that I'm actually from the Chicago area, so I've actually been to the actual alley where Dillinger was killed outside of the Biograph Theater. And it's so crazy how dense this kind of history is in a place like Chicago, because just a couple minutes drive down the street from where that theater is the former site of the warehouse where the St. Valentine's Day Massacre took place. Just a few minutes away. Like you could probably walk there pretty easily. It's so crazy, man. And now that wall is in the Mob Museum in Vegas. So, but hey, thankfully we got you guys cracking down on these kinds of folks today. You know,
It wasn't me. It was the previous generation.
yeah.
They laid down the law. So.
I was gonna say you look really young for your age, man. You know, you hydrate really well.
I tried. It's hot here.
Right? Thanks, man. Look at that. These are the actual Thompsons recovered from the Dillinger gang. 2 of 5. And 1, they don't know where it is. All right, I'm not sure how much you guys will be able to hear me, but before our tour starts here, I thought we'd go over the merch hall. They didn't have too much available, but I still wanted to get something to remember this. This here is a book that the hotel worked with a historian on that talks all about the capture. So that's going to be a cool read later on tonight. And then this shirt is awesome. Has Dillinger's mugshot. It's from the Cup Cafe, which is right over there. And over Dillinger's eyes it says, "Well, I'll be damned." John Dillinger, Tucson, Arizona, 1934. Now, just to be clear, they do have other merchandise for the hotel itself, but the stuff I just showed you is the only thing that they have of John Dillinger. Now, the lady working the counter, I had brought up to her that I had been to Dealey Plaza where President John F. Kennedy was killed, and mentioned that in their gift shop they have reprints of newspapers from that day. And she said she's going to mention to hotel management that they should look into trying to get something similar to that as well.
How many of you guys have been upstairs before? I've stayed. Mostly no? Y'all stay here?
The rooftop.
Oh!
Yeah,
That's special. Yeah. Okay, cool. So it's going to be the first time for a few people. I like to know that. I like to have a little idea. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the historic and very haunted Hotel Congress. This building has been standing here for 107 years, but the land beneath us, that has been lived on continuously for thousands. Tucson is one of the longest continuously inhabited places in all of North America, stretching back at least 4,000 years. That is of particular interest to us because it is a lot of spirits that we think have not yet moved on. Some quick details about our beauty. Hotel Congress was built in 1919 with 80 guest rooms total, and it included a ground floor with a beauty shop, a stationery store, a barber shop, the Congress Hotel Cafe, and our famous bar, the Tap Room. The hotel and its amenities were designed to serve the railroad passengers stepping off the Southern Pacific Line, which is the rail line right in our backyard. And it was considered one of the finest hotels between El Paso and Los Angeles. Tucson was small back then, but Hotel Congress was definitely at the center of it all. Just imagine our lobby filled with cattle ranchers, traveling salesmen, starlets, outlaws, lovers, and at least one very famous bank robber. Aside from its interesting share of characters though, Hotel Congress has seen tragedy, heartbreak, and activity that we still can't explain. But before we do meet any of our ghosts, let's start with a story that belongs more in the history books. It's less about the supernatural and more about crime, fire, and fate. Long before we became famous for our ghosts, Hotel Congress became famous for its role in catching one of the most notorious gangsters in American history, John Dillinger. By 1934, the FBI had already labeled Dillinger public enemy number 1 due to the spree of bank robberies and murders and bullets being exchanged across the country. He and his gang were so heavily armed with machine guns, automatic rifles, and bulletproof vests that they outmatched most police departments. And Tucson was still very much a small desert town, populated by about 40,000 people, and protected by a police force of roughly 35 officers. The Dillinger gang reportedly referred to the police department here as those Hicktown cops, and they did not take Tucson seriously. Fully equipped, Dillinger rolled into Tucson with 3 of his gang members to lay low at a house nearby on 2nd Avenue. But the owner had just waxed the floors in that little house, so the gang members decided to spend the night right here on the 3rd floor of Hotel Congress. Dillinger, on the other hand, absolutely needed the privacy of that small house, so wax floors be damned, him and his girlfriend Billy didn't stay there. Around 7 a.m. on January 23rd, the boiler in our basement caught fire, and the elevator shaft quickly carried the flames to the 3rd floor. The handicap bathroom that is behind you is that elevator shaft. Would have had the beautiful old brass closing doors with the crank elevator and operator, and it would have been a little petite one. So flames have been carried to the 3rd floor. On the third floor were two of Dillinger's gang members, Russell and Charles, both with their girlfriends. As smoke filled the building from the bottom up, Tucson firefighters raised an aerial ladder to the third floor, and the two couples climbed down to safety with the firefighters' assistance. But before Charles would leave, he made a very persistent and unusual request. He insisted that the firefighters go back up, not for people, but for their luggage. The gang members tipped these firefighters an absurd amount of money for the Depression era, $12 whole to each firefighter. The bags were unusually heavy, and the firefighters grew suspicious because of the amount of money and then the heaviness of the bags. On a hunch, the firefighters compared the men's faces to photos in a local true crime magazine called True Detective, which I think is classy, and realized who they had actually been helping. They alerted the Tucson police, who began strategically rounding up the gang members one by one, tracking their movement because of their recognizable and flashy cars. By 6:30 p.m. on January 25th, Dillinger was captured in the driveway of that small house on 2nd Avenue, calmly without a single shot being fired. It wasn't until he was fingerprinted roughly 30 minutes later that they understood who they actually had in their custody. Tucson had pulled off the impossible. But of course, we know that Dillinger did not stay locked up for long. Within weeks of his capture here in Tucson, he had escaped his jail cell in Indiana, carving a fake gun out of wood and bluffing his way out the front door. He remained on the run until July 22nd, 1934, when he was shot and killed by lawmen outside Chicago's Biograph Theater. Here in Tucson, though, we still remember his capture as one of the strangest and most satisfying in outlaw history. It said that Dillinger's only comment that day was, "Well, I'll be damned." And here at Hotel Congress, we say maybe he still lives. While the Dillinger outlaws and that gang left a bold mark here, some of the most fascinating stories, in my opinion, are a bit quieter and a lot less predictable. And that is what we're moving into next. Whether you believe it or not, one of the things that we like to talk about when we begin talking about our ghosts, our spirits, is that ghosts often linger in liminal spaces or in the in-between places. So doorways, stairwells, train stations, and hotels, which are nothing but that hustle and bustle of the in-between. Tonight we'll meet some of the hotel's most well-known residents, and not all of them are alive. First, I want to introduce you to the lurking place of one special lady. Even the county library has her in their archives. That is how official her haunting is. They say a woman in lace haunts the staircase, bringing with her the smell of roses. I personally don't just see her as a ghost, though, because she is one of the highest volume interaction ghosts here on property. I think of her as being a guardian or a gateway ghost that is assessing whether or not you can handle a little bit of ghost activity. I think that it's pretty innocent to smell some roses from a ghost. You know, that's like not too scary in my opinion, as far as the spectrum goes. So I think if you freak out about having that experience, she's like, okay, that's all for you. But if you kind of stay calm and you're open to it and you remain curious, I think that she has the ability to kind of open that portal and say, all right, maybe you can have a little more, we'll see. But before we climb those stairs, I am going to chat with you guys about another longtime resident of Hotel Congress. We call him the Victorian Gentleman, and people most often find him overlooking our plaza. So there is stuff going on out there, but we're going to head out so y'all can take a look at the window that people normally see him from. So if we'll all stay in a group, we're going to migrate out there, and we're going to be going out to the left, so just follow me. Window on the very end on the right, that is room 214. Guests down here on the plaza have spotted a tall, well-dressed man in a seersucker suit and top hat, just standing at that window watching. He doesn't shout, and he's not particularly creepy to the people that have seen him. He just observes like a dignified host, keeping his eye on the festivities. Back when the Oseran family first took stewardship of the hotel in 1985, staff would oftentimes rush upstairs during his sightings, thinking that someone had actually broken into the room. But the door was locked and the room was empty, and the sightings have obviously continued. And one thing that I think is very important to mention once we start really talking about the ghosts is that we are a business. We're very practical about the fact that like old buildings need repairs. So if there are weird things happening with the electricity, we're calling an electrician. If there's weird things with the plumbing, like we're calling a plumber. But with apparitions, those kind of things are a lot harder to explain, and especially the volume, because multiple people sometimes see him down here at the same time. You know, harder to explain. Some believe that he is a former guest from the 1920s. Others think he might be linked to an antique piece of furniture that sits in that room. There is a beautiful armoire with an attached mirror, like a circular mirror on there that to me kind of fits the bill. But others think that he's just kind of the plaza's quiet overseer. He doesn't intrude, but he doesn't leave either. Always there and always watching. One interesting thing about him is, well, the volume of experiences does mostly happen from outside of the room. But folks that stay in that room sometimes smell starched linens or cigar smoke. And people do say that before you enter the room, you should knock, because you might hear a gentleman's knock back. So that is one of the more active rooms. But do y'all have any questions so far? No. Okay, happy faces. Let's go back inside. It'll be a little quieter. Here, let me get a little further. If you guys do smell roses on the way up, we say that she has found you interesting enough to follow. I will say we specifically do not have a floral scent that is in the hotel. I was very specific about requesting that it was something woodsy, so there is a scent here, but it is not floral. So if you smell something, let me know. We're gonna go up together and then to the left. That is really excited about opening up a room. Yeah. You're right in the front. Okay. For you, sir. So this is one of our most colorful characters. His name is Vince. He arrived in Tucson by train in 1950, checked into Hotel Congress, and lived right here in room 220 for 36 years. Long-term guest does not even begin to cover it with Vince. He was definitely like an extended part of the Hotel Congress family. If you will do the honors. You never know if unlocking this door is going to be really easy or really difficult. So
what year was the hotel built?
It started being built in 1918, but then was officially opened in 1919.
Well, you said he came in 1915.
Yeah, 1950.
50?
Yeah. All right.
Oh, there he is.
Oh. So Vince was a World War II veteran, and by all accounts, a handyman with a very unusual toolkit. Forget wrenches and screwdrivers. Vince's tool of choice was the humble butter knife. He'd tighten screws with them, pry things open, and even do little fixes around the hotel. If something was broken, chances are that Vince had a butter knife in his hand working on it. He wasn't a full-time member of our maintenance staff. He was partially retired, but he had a sixth sense and would oftentimes find things before our full-time maintenance people would. And it gets interesting after Vince passes away in this room in 2001. It was totally peaceful and of old age, which is like a big blessing. But staff began finding butter knives in very strange places, tucked into couch cushions, balanced on door frames, sticking out of air vents, and even placed on the rarely frequented basement stairs. It seems as if Vince never put his tools down. He just kept tinkering from the other side. And one thing that I find very special about Vince's story is that it's not a haunting of some great tragedy or heartbreak or unfinished business. It is the fact that he lived in this room for 36 years. I mean, that's, in my brain, that's 4 decades. That's a lot. So you're going to leave an imprint on a space that you're in so routinely. And I think there's something very sacred about routine. So to me, this room has a very like light and kind of funny grandfatherly feel. I do think that people typically experience this room as like a little more playful and mischievous. This is a painting that was done of Vince when he lived here, and he donated it to us knowing that it would live on in the room. One of the cool things about the haunted rooms, the 4 that we have, the owners are very aware that there's like a stewardship to that history, so there are mementos in each room that honor the spirit that is associated with it. The little receipt that is on this painting is actually from the Cup Cafe, which is where he was having his breakfast every morning and which is where he was getting the butter knives. So he was very playful. He was reportedly pretty grumpy in the morning, but the butter knife game of like kind of exchanging them with employees and stuff was part of his like, I know I'm grumpy, but like this is still like we're still friends, like we're still kind of funny. Very sweet. And then we do also have a shadow box behind y'all, that blue frame on the wall that has some of his medals that he also donated.
Nice.
Do y'all have any questions about this room? I'm gonna say I'm doing a good job. To me, this room has this like lightness that after we leave, especially if tour groups are a little more shy, and I notice people are more chatty. Does anybody feel like have a sense of energy in this room? Sometimes people come on tours and like everybody is really sensitive, and sometimes people are just curious. So
just coming up the stairs, you can feel
like a little. You feel a difference. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are all the snacks there like what the snacks back then?
No, they're gonna be local treats. So they are. We source them from people that are either making stuff here in Tucson or like in the local area. But we do, there's a couple like old-fashioned candy things that we have. What was that?
The Fifth Avenue bar?
Yeah, that is definitely, yeah. And then there's another one. I think the licorice ropes that we stock, the like cowboy ropes, are something that recipe's been around for a very long time. So we're also, little things like that.
Does that phone work?
That phone calls down to our switchboard at the front desk. This is one of those, like, if y'all ask questions, you get more info, because I know way too much to say in a 30-minute tour. So the switchboard, fully works. It doesn't call out as a landline. It's only connected to the switchboard. But when I, like, ring up to guests to let them know that maybe your food is ready or whatever's going on, you have to physically ring this phone by pushing a button on the switchboard. So the ringing that you hear up here is like my cadence as I'm pushing the button, which I think is kind of interesting. But it's both on both ends. It is like an obnoxious noise. The switchboard scares the you know what out of me regularly, and I'm like, oh, okay, right, yes, hello. And then when you ring up, it's like,
Is there a number you have to dial to get
if you just pick it up, it comes right down. Yep.
So what's the best cadence you've ever done? Dun, 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 dun.
I have, and I never have known if it worked either, because I was not up here to like receive how it sounded, but I do have fun, yes. All right, we are gonna go to the least occupied traveled room in Hotel Congress. It is the only room that survived the fire on the 3rd floor, and it is very special. You only get to go up there on these tours. That is you earlier were like, there's the room that nobody rents. This is the room that no one is allowed to rent. So we'll exit this room and lock up. I am gonna close the curtains because that is my way of saying goodbye to Vince and letting him know that we're leaving him now. I always try to let him know before we come.
Is that a working radio?
Yes, that goes down to the radio station that streams out of our front room, KXCI. So it's tuned right to when you turn them on, and they have that cool like vintage sound. Yeah.
Did he have like a couch in here and not 2 beds?
Yeah, there would have been different furniture in here. Even the dresser that is in here is actually from another room. It is a beautiful old piece. Yeah. But he had a bigger dresser in here. There was like a larger chair, like a love seat, and then a bed. Yeah. So there was different stuff.
What is something like this run a night?
It's gonna vary. I would say this is probably like $240 for the 2 beds, and then it being haunted, it's a little extra. When the owner was first talking to me about like how renting goes, and especially with the haunted tours, she was so cheeky, and she was like, "Yeah, we charge extra for the haunting." Like, okay, Rebecca.
Fires and stuff like that now, are the rooms? I mean, I can't really identify, but are these sprinklers somewhere in different places? Or
oh, yeah, like that. Yeah, that one. That, I think, is one. This is one of the smoke detectors. But yeah, we have mini splits in the room, smoke detectors and everything. Yeah. Okay, I think that's good. So, we're pretending that we're in the seance room because when I wrote the script, we were originally going to be in the seance room. So here we are. One of the very few spaces to survive the fire of 1934. The elevator was lost in that blaze, but these walls remained. Original plaster that has soaked up over a century of footsteps, voices, and if you believe the stories, things far stranger. That is why I call the Seance Room the room that listens back. Over the years, Hotel Congress has hosted full Victorian-style seances up here, dark room demonstrations with spirit trumpets and the works. The undertone set for seances here, though, did change once the current owners, bought it in '85. They are aware of the stewardship of, energy and not just like opening up a portal that you don't know what is maybe going to come through. So the intention that is set is that we invite what is kind and what is curious. Practitioners first listen for the building's heartbeat, things like vents, pipes, and hallway murmurs. They notice anything that doesn't fit, like a soft shift in fabric, a sudden cool ribbon of air, the faint scent of wax, cigar smoke, or old perfume. Sometimes those small details become very loud when you're really dropped in and focusing in the moment. And whether people felt a chill or nothing at all, that is the work, making the room to notice. Up here, we say that results aren't guaranteed, but the invitation is. So, we're gonna go up the original wooden stairs. They are a little more narrow than today's wider stairs, and we are going up and around the corner with a shorter door frame. So if you are tall, please watch your head as you're stepping from the stairs up into the next area.
She was not kidding. We're gonna get close to this door frame. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the smell of it.
Yeah, right? The staff were always gunning for that. We're like, please. Yes. So to the left, we have our sister building, the Rialto. It was designed, built by the same architect that built Hotel Congress, so we do have a little affection for her. And then on the end of this building, on the right-hand side, if you look at the bright white open sign, and then to the left, behind the tree, there is a black countertop, and that business used to be a walk-up ice cream and soda shop. And there are some amazing historical photos of people getting off of their horses and walking right up to that counter to order treats, which I just think is delightful. But this room to me does have a very different energy. I think in part because it is a more protected space. Because the floors are original in this room and the stairs are original, the owners are very aware of just the wear and tear on the room, so that's why we only let tour groups in here, really. But to me, the energy in here is more open and curious. It feels very different than the rest of the space. It feels more watchful. Do y'all get a sense of anything in here?
It's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yes. You're feeling warm. It's funny, people have very different temperature experiences in here, which I find interesting. But any questions?
Is that bar original up here?
No, it's not. This is definitely it's kind of being stored here, but it is something that we use for events sometimes. The piece that is behind it with the mirrors is original to the hotel, not to this room. But the elevator equipment, the original operating piece that would have been on the second floor, was salvaged and put here just so that we could display it. The phone that is below it on the right-hand side does have a twin that is in the basement, and it does still work. The owners have told me that they have stood on either end and tested them a couple times over the years, so I think that's fun.
How much of the hotel was destroyed in fire?
So all of the third floor except for this room, there would have been 40 hotel rooms on this floor to match the 40 on the bottom, on the second floor. The outline, the structure and stuff of the rooms was different, so this is the only really truly massive room.
Okay.
So this was kind of the room, that had the windows on the top floor. But yeah, so we lost the other 39.
Yeah.
And we do only have 39 now on the second floor. We did eat up one for housekeeping, just to actually have storage space and stuff. So now we are 39 total instead of 80.
Did they lose the roof on?
Yes, yeah. So this part of this wall is original. The brick is original. Roof was rebuilt. floors I don't somehow survive. But a big part of the roof, like everywhere over there, was totally destroyed. Yeah.
Was this a guest room?
Yes. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. The original floors, you can see it wasn't like partitioned or anything. I don't know honestly if this was like a room that was rented a lot, because it, this would have been like a kind of crazy fancy room. But it was a guest room. Yeah. I love when people ask this question. So this has a history about the family that now owns the Hotel de Ostrand. Towards the end of the building on the right-hand side, there's a gentleman in a lighter colored suit, and he was an optometrist. That photo was taken around this era, and he is a family member that is kind of part of the story of them being professionals and kind of passing money down through the years and then being able to own the Hotel Congress. So that was something that I found when I was kind of cleaning up in here and just thought it was cool.
When did they acquire the hotel?
1985, yeah.
And they also own the restaurant across the.
They used to, don't anymore.
Yeah,
We
they
sold
shut
it.
down.
Yeah.
Oh, they sold it?
Yeah. My understanding, it was actually sold with the Maynard technique still.
Okay.
But
So do you know what's gonna happen over there?
supposedly it's still going to be Maynard's. So another, yeah, that's what I heard.
And the lunch counter too?
I believe it. Yeah, I
It just
don't think we sold. Yes, it did. Yeah. That was in November. Yeah. Because the sale happened.
So is this an independently owned hotel, or is it part of a?
Oh, independently, yeah. It's fully family owned.
But it's not part of like the Hilton or any
No.
place?
No. Yeah. We like manually make reservations, like just for context. We're click, we're on the other end. Boop, 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 boop. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna take you guys back down just to the second floor and we'll wrap up. If you do have any questions, I can answer those. And I am gonna tell you a little bit about the tunnels, because we have an interesting tunnel history. So if y'all will be very careful going down the stairs, I will meet you right back in the little carpeted area where we just left. Questions that y'all have before I give you a little tunnel history and then send you on your way?
I might have one.
Yeah?
That room that we just
Yes, 220?
that's the only room we got.
Yes, yeah, of the haunted rooms, yes.
Is it 218 or 219? I'm thinking of when people get really affected.
Neither of those. There is the ghost hunters came a few years ago and went into 219, and they thought that they were encountering a spirit in there, but it's not one that we have a lot of documentation for, so it's actually not one of the ones that we talk about. The four that we identified here are ones where people have had so many common experiences that it's like, okay, there's commonality, something's going on. But yeah, 219 is kind of in question because they thought very much that there was something going on in there. But.
Yeah, I was watching an episode of Ghost Adventures, and I don't know if it was exaggerated, but they claimed that hotel staff had to call 911. People were staying in there.
Yeah, so they, one of the interesting things about the Ghost Adventure people, they are very known for kind of poking and prodding the ghosts and whatever energy is there. One of the funny things that I learned after being here for long enough and becoming a little closer with the owners is that after Ghost Adventures came, the ghosts that are here are not particularly creepy and malicious. They are interactive, but they're not pushing people downstairs and really scaring the you-know-what out of people. But after the Ghost Hunters people came, the entities that were here were acting up more. That was how the owner described it. And she said that they kind of tried to talk to the spirits and stage the building quite a few times in the next couple weeks afterwards, and things did calm down. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's a whole other narrative I think that happens there that's yeah. So one little piece of tunnel history for you. There are a bunch of original tunnels that run all through the older downtown building. And we have an interesting history with it in part because of the prohibition and running, alcohol running. There is supposedly a ghost that lives down in those tunnels. He was playing a card game here in the lobby late one night, and there was some kind of altercation, and he escaped through the tunnels, but did pass away in them, and now lingers down there. So people sometimes swear that they see cigarette smoke coming out of the tunnels, which are now collapsed because they needed to be able to support the streetcar and all of the weight-bearing people moving the streetcar around. But that's a little fun extra that I like to add in on like our special event days. Anyways, okay. I think it's important after getting a bunch of information to kind of let it all sink in. Feeling the weight of history in these walls, and then the echoes of footsteps past, the whispers of laughter and the secrets and the mischief. The hotel isn't just a building. We definitely think of it as being alive, those employees that work here. Tonight you've become a part of that living memory. You've walked alongside the spirits and seen a little of what they see, and left your own imprint in the story of Hotel Congress. You are a part of it now, and as a Tucson local, that is very special to me. So I appreciate y'all coming today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you know why the tunnels were originally built? Was it just prohibition?
They were originally built, they have an interesting history. They were originally built both to be able to move like equipment and people through downtown that were constructing things, and it was a big project, especially in that era, to be building buildings of brick that were like this large. There is a racist history with them too, because a lot of the people that were coming and building things here were Chinese, Mexican, and they were forced to use the like tunnels underground in order to pop up in the different locations they were working. But then there is also, the rum-running history. But originally they were just functional, and then kind of got co-opted into the Wild West narrative.
I guess I was divided in half. I know they existed on the East Coast, where basically cold in the winter.
Yeah.
And you're not going to walk around on the street.
Yeah, right, yeah. Ours was, definitely not like weather related as far as I know. Could be. It would be a lot cooler though. Yeah.
On the East Coast, they were telling me that they did it to move supplies back and forth, so you didn't clog up the very narrow streets back then. So they would just move, all your supplies and just whatever the different places needed, so they were all connected, like to the train station and then all the places. But so that's why I was thinking maybe it's the same. Something similar.
Totally. Yeah.
When did they do the streetcars?
When did
the streetcars start?
I think it was 2015.
It's not been that long, because I haven't been here in years.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it is, yeah. I recommend if anybody's here from out of town, it's fun to ride the little loop. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate y'all. I did write and research the script myself, and I do accept tips if you feel so inclined. But otherwise, I'm really happy that we got to spend some time together today.
That was incredible. What's your name again?
Melissa.
Melissa.
Yeah. Thank you.
So we just finished our tour of the historic Hotel Congress, and I want to specifically thank our tour guide, Melissa Williams. She was so incredibly sweet and kind and friendly and incredibly informative, and honestly one of the best tours that I've ever taken anywhere. So thank you. So that's it today from the historic Hotel Congress. And I don't know about you guys, but I thought that reenactment was absolutely amazing. The actors were so funny and so interesting. It was just a great time all around. And that tour, Melissa Williams, our tour guide, was absolutely incredible, as I said a little while ago. And so I want to give a big shout out to her. Thank you very much for being so wonderful and for letting me record the tour as well. And with that, I must bid you all adieu and say goodbye and good night.